No one philosophizes in a vacuum. When one engages in philosophy, the subjects they turn their attention to, the kinds of questions they ask, and the way they try to answer them are, rather obviously, influenced by a host of factors. For example, one's upbringing, language, academic tradition, to name but a few. For instance, when those with a background in Western philosophy talk about analytic philosophy, they might conjure up associations with Plato, Descartes, Frege, Quine, and so on. If the same person speaks about Chinese philosophy, they might think of Lao Tzu, Kongzi, Wuxi, Zhang Dongsun. Much of philosophy is comparing arguments, ideas, thinkers, and intellectual traditions to gain new insights. Comparative philosophy is a subfield wherein philosophers engage cross-culturally and intentionally compare the ideas and arguments of distinct intellectual and cultural traditions. One example of comparative philosophy is found in Western readings of the Chinese philosophy of Moism, named after Mozi. Moist thinkers are sometimes described as consequentialists or proto- or para-utilitarians by Western academics. What they mean by this is that Moist philosophy emphasizes the importance of consequences for determining moral value. In this instance, the Western academic is using analytic philosophical terms like consequentialist or utilitarian to taxonomize and articulate aspects of Moism that reminds them of similar content in Western philosophy. Conversely, a Moist philosopher could say that Bentham's utilitarianism displays similar moral reasoning to Moism. In this example, we can appreciate that comparative philosophy is about the articulation of foreign ideas within a domestic philosophical tradition, and a scrutinization of this process of approaching new philosophical traditions. Comparative philosophy, in one sense, is not new. It is likely as old as the ability to share ideas. However, in contemporary comparative philosophy, there is debate concerning the practice, which can be captured in the following bipartite question. What exactly counts as comparative philosophy? And should we be doing it? We can appreciate that comparative philosophy offers both advantages and foibles for philosophical practice. Some of the alleged benefits of engaging in comparative philosophy are as follows. One can learn about another philosophical tradition in a manner which makes it easier to comprehend through one's own cultural dialect. One can appreciate a shared human inquisitiveness by appreciating shared philosophical problems. And one can learn from other traditions and, hopefully, make philosophical progress by adopting what has been done well and scrying what their own tradition has neglected. One might think of comparative philosophy as a kind of global, cultural peer review process. In this way, the benefits of comparative philosophy is that it compels one to reflect on their own tradition's presuppositions, methodologies, and meta-philosophy. Challenges raised by comparative philosophy include charges of chauvinism, interpreting an alien tradition only by the lights of the familiar, appropriation, taking ideas from one tradition without sufficient acknowledgement or to reinforce cultural domination, misinterpretation, simplifying or misunderstanding one tradition to square it with another, irrelevance, retreading philosophical ground, hybridity or syncretism, fusing disparate philosophical traditions into an impotent new entity, methodological commensurability, figuring out whether and how comparisons between different traditions are to be conducted, and pragmatism, adopting ideas and practices from other philosophical traditions for alleged pragmatic benefits without understanding or deference for the tradition or appreciation of the necessity of the tradition to properly understand the idea or practice. Of course, suspending or neglecting comparative philosophy can also entail negative consequences. Skepticism, declining to judge or critically engage with other philosophical traditions and thereby missing out on new knowledge. Incommensurability, resigning oneself to the implausibility of comparing traditions and finding common ground. Perennialism, freezing the evolution of other philosophical traditions by treating them as static. And again, chauvinism, determining a tradition not to be doing real philosophy. So much for should we be doing comparative philosophy? What counts as comparative philosophy? One could be an eliminativist about the subfield of comparative philosophy and purport that all philosophy is comparative. After all, is there any difference in kind between comparing Plato's Parmenides and Spinoza's Ethics and comparing Parmenides with Popol Vuh? Comparing Kierkegaard and Berkeley is to compare two perhaps incommensurable methodologies from the same cultural tradition. If, according to what I call eliminativists, all philosophy is comparative, then why not engage analytically with non-Western philosophy? Alternatively, some philosophers are restrictive about what counts as philosophizing. According to James Maffei, some what I call restrictivists distinguish between having a philosophy and doing philosophy. The prior have a worldview that guides their behavior, while the latter self-consciously and critically reflect upon and speculate about reality. Some restrictivists might deny that comparative philosophy can even be done. One needn't endorse such strong views to appreciate that there could be a middle ground where the difference in degree reaches a point where it becomes a difference in kind. Perhaps all philosophy is in a sense comparative. But regardless, we should proceed with caution when engaging with other traditions and be aware of the philosophical methodology that we are employing in that engagement. I'm attracted to the position that all philosophy is in a sense comparative, but that there is real added complexity at the level of cross-cultural analysis. In my own writing on the matter, I implicitly endorse the value of cautious comparative analysis. I suggest that the insights of analytic philosophers, such as Saul Kripke, Michael Devitt, and Bernard Williams, can provide a fresh perspective on mechanisms of aiming at normative and descriptive truth in early Confucianism. In turn, early Confucian theories of language can provide alternative approaches to analytic accounts of linguistic truth. Of course, the ground is treacherous. Learning a new tradition can be like learning a new language, with all the associated pitfalls for the non-native speaker. The debate regarding the possibility and value of comparative philosophy continues, but I am hopeful that by applying the methodologies of one tradition to another, we can further our own understanding of both.